So I'm here today in Scotland where my personal training studio is, and I'm very excited to be here on Hairbrained, which I've been following Hairbrained ever since they started, and this is many years ago. And so I'm just so grateful to be able to share with you kind of my take on a creative men's look where we kind of pre-colored the hair as well and also did a little pre-cutting. So I want to take you through my journey about how I'm approaching this type of style, and something that's a bit more versatile, that when I'm going to be showing the crisscross cutting technique on the top where the disconnected area is. And so I'm very excited, I'm really looking forward to hopefully this works out for you. With this type of cutting technique, now where it stems from is going to take you back in time, especially during the 80s, where we had something called channel cutting, where the first section might have been short, the next section was long, the next section short, and so forth. Now, with the crisscross cutting, we're also going to be taking another almost creative cutting technique called bias cutting, where we're going to mix the two concepts together, where bias cutting is cutting it more of an angle, so it's a bit more body hugging, like a bias skirt. I was about to say dessert. Skirt. And so the first section would be going shorter to longer this way. And then the next section is going to be going shorter to longer this way, and so forth. And what's great about this is a great concept that can actually work for a shorter, almost a bit more friendlier version of a men's, look inside the salon. Or you can also do it on your ladies. Also, you could do it on curly hair or longer lengths. So this is a really fun technique to give almost extreme movement and also texture to your client's hair. So. What I did was, so today I spent all day kind of prepping my model here. So we're actually working with some disconnection lengths here. Now, if you can see, let's see, right here, you can see it's quite short underneath. So what I did was I actually sectioned this off just like a simple horseshoe shape, going all the way to the back. Okay, then what I then did was, on the sides, I worked a very extreme flat layering technique, or almost very severe square layering, where I pulled it all up to a 180-degree angle. So I kept it very short and keeping length in the perimeter. Then afterwards, I brought up the perimeter with my point cutting technique, and also I did a lot of slice cutting as well to really give a more of a textured look. So I didn't want to be so barbershop feeling. I really want to give lots of cool texture and everything. So for tonight's lesson, I will be continuing on the top, but before we get started, just to let you know, I want to introduce to you my camera person. Her name is Jennifer, and so she's going to be helping us. So if you have any questions regarding this technique or any type of cutting, please feel free to put your question in the chat box, and she's going to be your voice. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I have my microphone on, so we'll get started. So now, one of the hardest things about this technique is to remember what you did beforehand. So I'm pretty sure I remember going this way. So what I'll have to do, and this is one of the trickiest things, is that remembering. And also, you also have to position your body back and forth. So you will be moving around your client. So, okay, Jennifer, is anyone watching yet?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So.
Kelly's asking, why did you cut the back before and not during the live?
The reason why, Kelly, is because we would have had pretty much almost like over a 3-hour live video tutorial. So I'm very slow with cutting, and also want to make sure it's a bit more perfect for you guys. So that's the reason why. Normally, when I work with disconnection, what happens is I tend to work the underneath first, then I'll work the top. So especially if I'm going to keep the disconnection longer on top. But now, if you do more internal disconnection, I'll actually probably start the inside of the haircut first, then I'll work out the perimeter. So hopefully that helped answer your question there. Now, what I'm now doing is I'm going to be doing the next section, and of course, once again, you have to really switch your client around. Now I'm going to be going through here. Once again, it is trying to remember exactly what you did beforehand. And it's almost like using more like a visual guide. So I'm working very severe type of angle.
Rizka is asking, is this cut good for thinning hair on top?
Okay. Now for thinning hair, to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't do this for very fine density of hair. What I would recommend for finer density of hair is more club cutting, so more straight cutting, but also working more of like a rounder shape. So first, the reason why we do round instead of a square shape for men is that, especially with men that are thinning or going bald, I tend to work more rounded, so it helps promote a bit more thickness throughout the hair. Then, by doing club cutting, you're actually going to be promoting a bit more weight into the hair. Then, if you want to kind of soften the texture or soften the shape a little bit, I would then still continue going over those areas, especially here by the parietal ridge, and round it off with a bit of soft point cutting, just to help give a bit more texture to the hair. So hopefully that helped answer your question, Reese.
Linda says, hi, Sid from Doncaster.
Hello, very nice to see you guys.
Esma says, hi from Australia, love to watch you, you're amazing.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, I'm very grateful that Hairbrain, where Gerard, Kelly, and Amy were able to give me this platform to be able to show you guys this almost a really interesting technique that hopefully you'll be able to. One of the key things is that you're able to give it a try into your clients or your models, hopefully tomorrow, depending on where you are in the world. And it's just something, it's just like a bit more like a fun, interesting technique. The good thing is, now probably why I didn't necessarily show the underneath being cut was because with this type of technique, especially when you work with this connection, what happens is, with the underneath, you can actually have done a fade, you could have done clipper of a comb, you could have done scissor of a comb. You could probably have left this really super long if you wanted to. The choice is yours. So this is, I'd rather teach you guys technique instead of haircuts. Because if you do haircut A, B, and C, if you get haircut D show up in your salon, you're gonna be in trouble. So I'd rather show you technique. So this technique, you can adapt it for your ladies or your men's work, and you can do it on shorter length of hair, and you can do it on all different. So
can we say it's male pixie cut? Oh, male pixie cut.
In all fairness, I probably wouldn't use that terminology when I work with them. I wouldn't say that to a gentleman that, oh, it's a male pixie cut. I probably would say that, to give, remember, a more masculine term. So what I would then communicate with the client, especially that I want to create a bit more exaggerated texture to give more complete movement to your hair, and also something that's a bit more unusual. So something a bit more unique for you. Something that creates a bit more expensive texture. See, these type of words a man possibly or your client wants to hear. So that's the only thing, is I wouldn't necessarily say the word pixie to a gentleman client, because then it might relate it to a bit more feminine terminology. So I'm now gonna go this way. So like I said, I have to go back and forth here. Now, so taking smaller sections, as you get closer to the front, you'll see I'm going to be over-directing back more. So I'm going to have a much longer fringe or bang area, depending on where you are in the world. And I want to kind of be more sweeping. Then you'll see in how I'm going to connect it in a way, visually, to the sides. So. Here we go. Oop, just want to make sure that's all connected there. So this is a fun technique that you can offer to your clients. Now what happens is, as you see, I'm doing this on wet hair first, then you're going to see that I'm going to be really going back over, working when the hair's all dried, to really get a bit more. I'm going to do a variety of slice cutting, point cutting, and also you see I'm going to be doing a bit more bias cutting design. Just to give a bit more, you know, you really want to personalize this haircut for your client. You know, the key thing is, who's the most important person in the hair salon or the barbershop, right? Is the returning client. You want these clients to come back to you, and you know, how can you sell yourself as a barber or a hairdresser? You know, try and create unique type of looks for them, where then it's like, well, wait a minute, you know, they necessarily can't do it themselves at home, or you know, maybe the other barber or hairdresser down the street can't do these looks. So it's all about having a bit more fun with your clientele. Now, once again, this technique can be easily adapted. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, you know, it's just, yeah, have a bit of fun, play around with it, try it. Works great on curly hair.
Rosalind says a male pixie is a sparrow man, so we could use sparrow cut.
Okay. All right. I just would never, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a bit old school because I'm a bit old now. I just don't know if how I would normally say that. So a sparrow cut, yeah, you can make him look like Jack Sparrow if you wanted to. So, okay, so I'm going to be doing this side here. So I'm at the last part of the fringe. Continue. There we go. So I'm just trying to give that bit more movement to the hair. And you'll see this movement, especially throughout, you know, especially when the hair is all dried. And you're going to see the way I'm going to be incorporating it, working with a variety of texturizing techniques. And then also to really create that finish to the hair. Especially, you know, you'll see that kind of like the way it's been colored. What we did was we kind of just did a bit more of like a circle in the crown area here. And then what we did was actually we pre-lightened the root area, only about, maybe about that much, about over like almost an inch and a half. And then the ends are level 2 and with a demi-permanent. Then we actually just applied a mixture of blue and yellow direct dye to make green onto the pre-lightened area, just to give a bit more unusual type of feeling to it. Now, what happens now? So, just going to just spray a little leave-in conditioner into the hair. Sometimes you can spray the comb, just say if you don't want to soak the gentleman's face. So. And what I'm going to be doing is, I'm now going to be combing the hair. Now, I'm going to be combing the hair into, okay, using that as a guide, into my fingers. Now I know I'll be creating a little graduation here. It's okay. Now if you see, I'm kind of hugging the cheekbone area and showcasing the lip area. So I'm going to be going over directing everything across the head. So I can really keep a bit more of like a longer feeling here. Then so we still have that bit of real strong length towards the fringe. Then we can see how the other side looks. And once again, so this is not, I don't want to be doing like almost like a bob shape or anything for the gentleman here. I kind of want to give him some different type of options. By having a little bit more different options, especially for styling for your gents, especially with texturizing or, you know, like styling the hair, you know, it's just like, it just makes it a bit more fun for your clients. There we go. So you can see, so kind of, he's able to wear his hair whichever way. And you're gonna really see how that texturizing, you know, the crisscross cutting technique works in the hair, especially when it's all dry. Now, you'll see that here, in the back here, he's got a very long bit of disconnection. I will be working with that on dry hair. You'll see the way I'm going to be doing all the texturizing and so forth. So you'll see the way I'm going to be approaching that. But definitely, I think one of the key important factors when you're working this type of technique, like I said, that crisscross can be, you can go whatever length, if you know, pretty much down to about this length here. And you can do it about this length here, so especially if the gentleman wants to wear the hair up. One of the things I really, when I speak to the clients or speak to the models about designing their hairstyle for them, is that I like to ask them, do you like to wear the hair up or down? Okay, and if they say, oh, I like to wear the hair down, I might, depending on the way it bevels or bends, you know, see, you know, that really will determine how much hair you take off, okay? So really take a closer look at the way, the design you want to create for your clients or models. So, now going through here, really kind of seeing how that's, yeah. So my gentleman has like a little bit of a slight wave to it. So this mannequin is from Pivot Point, which I absolutely love. And it's got some very like, almost a very European density of hair and texture. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be applying more of like a blow drying spray into the hair, a bit more sea salt, and maybe just a touch of frizz control cream. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to then do a wrap drying technique just to really kind of like, you know, I don't want to make this dead straight at the moment, but you'll see I want to dry off the hair. I might just touch it up with just the ends with the straightening irons, just so I can do a lot more freehand work. So definitely, I really want to see. Now at this stage, if you do use a hair cutting razor, yeah, go ahead. You can play around with, you know, really, you know, really reducing a lot more weight. You can, now the only thing is when the hair is wet, remember the hair sticks together. So when you are texturizing the hair, you might be taking off a lot more than you realize. So especially for any of the beginners out there starting to work into the hair industry. So, you know, what I would recommend is to work on more drier hair. So I will be using a very flat brush for blow drying, just to really work. This is a Japanese brush called a vest brush. So I will be working first just a little bit of sea salt spray. So spraying it throughout the hair. Then I'm going to be using a bit of like a frizz control cream, just to kind of give a little bit more dirtiness to the hair and also control. And also just a tiny bit of heat protection with the irons and everything, especially because we just colored this tonight. Oh, sorry, today, I do apologize. So Jen, are there any questions, anything I need to know there?
No questions.
No? Okay, so I will be working with this, especially a bit more texturizing techniques. So I'm going to be doing some more different type of cutting. I might play around with doing something called a natis haircut, which is a technique where it's almost like notch cutting, but making it a bit more extreme. So we're going to play around. I'm going to go with my feeling when I'm designing the look at the very end, especially when the hair's dry. So definitely at this point here, so I'm going to be using a flat brush here. I think flat brushes are quite good for you gentlemen because I really want to give some nice root movement to the hair. And really just a bit more control. So a couple things here, you know. So if you want to go for more of like a 60s vibe, all right, where everything's a bit more smoother and very strong lines, you can do it with this type of look as well, depending on how, you know, you check the haircut afterwards, you know, or maybe also finish it with styling. But what will also happen is, just say if I want to go for more of like a 90s, almost like rock and roll emo look, you might see I might actually make this a little bit more bigger with the blow drying. So at this point here, because I'm still going to be doing cutting, I'm going to be blow drying this very flat. I'm not going to make it too big or anything. So. Sorry, do I teach?
Kamini asked if you teach.
Oh, yes, I do. So I have 2 training studios or academies in the UK, and I also teach abroad. So I can also come to your academy or schools wherever you are in the world. So I do a lot of traveling as well. So yeah, so we also have we also do a Zoom. Just say if you can't. You know, travel or any type of limitations with that. We also do Zoom training as well, so like online training. So we also offer that as well. With the best thing is, especially with this platform, Hairbrains, they also do also online courses as well. So definitely, this platform, Hairbrain, is like the ultimate for hair training. So. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question there. Yeah, so I actually do teaching. So it's, yeah, it's, I love to teach. I've been teaching for about, I was gonna say about 22 years now. My background, I've been in the hair industry for 32 years. And my background is that I used to be a member of the creative team at their academies for Vidal Sassoon. So I used to teach at their Advanced Academy, I used to teach at Davis Muse, and also in Los Angeles as well, and in Santa Monica. So, so I know Gerard, I know Tracy, I know a lot of the Sassoon educators, or ex-educators, so yeah. But please, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment. Yeah, so I just really want to showcase, you see the way this is going to be. I'm going to be controlling the hair, making sure that the blow dry is very important. A lot of times, especially when I have beginners, you know, going into our barbering courses, you know, I do have to explain to them that, listen, the blow drying is very, very important as well. So.
Got a nice message from Callum McGowan.
Oh, hello, Callum.
Because I love watching you cutting hair, Sid. You always have the ability to ignite the creativity in my head. Thank you for all you do.
Oh, thank you so much there. Really, I'm very, very grateful. The thing is, you know what the beautiful thing is what happens is that, you know, especially, you know, we're working on a mannequin head here, you know, a block. And the beautiful thing is that, you know, like tonight I was thinking when I was talking to Hairbrains, you know, I wanted to really kind of like show something that, one, is creative, but also something that's useful for you to learn that will maybe try on your clients. So the crisscross cutting technique is a lot of fun to do, especially on your gentleman. I mean, this is a longer look, I just kind of like also have to go with my feeling at the moment, and how that I, working on men's hair, my ultimate feeling of everything about how, what I'm feeling at the moment with hair, and it's just something that I'm very into at the moment. So. Here we go. So I'm really moving this around, wrap drying the hair. I mean, yeah, you can see you can have a lot of fun with this here. So I will be just touching up the ends with the irons, just because that's the reason why I just like working a bit more like a smoother surface. So I'm not going to be ironing it too much where that we're going to lose the root movement to the hair. Iron's already heated up in the background here. Yeah, but thank you very much, Callum, for the compliment here. Really, I'm very, very grateful. If you see here, so I'm just working those irons, just getting those edges. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy with that. So with this here, I really wanted to, like I said, give a bit more of like a combination of like a 60s, if we call it a 60s emo look. So kind of just really just want a bit, you'll see with the perimeter, I'm gonna make that maybe just a touch stronger. And then I'm really gonna work with more of like almost like a softer internal area. Now by doing that, it's just like I'm creating a bit more strength on the perimeter and then just really creating lots of movement in the internal area. So especially when they want to style it, so they can still tuck it behind the ear. And then also having this just so it's not so top heavy. So like I said, it's just like I just want to have that bit of fun here with hair, Yeah, here we go. And I'll just move this around this way. There we go. But I quite like that color, that little bit more of like an interesting concept about coloring where we're just coloring the roots. I remember seeing this. Oh God, this is like. Oh my God, this is like about like 28 years ago, at least a minimum, where I was actually I was doing actually a session course in Toronto, and a man called John, he's the head colorist there, and he still works for the company, and he was doing a model where he just colored the model's roots only. So, because she had some dark ends, so yeah, so which I thought was quite interesting. So just kind of bringing back that concept where instead of doing the whole roots, we just did more of like a circular panel or a disconnected area just in the crown. So it kind of looks like almost like the light is hitting that into the crown area.
Oscar says he's digging the profile view.
Oh, thank you, Oscar. Yeah, it's I think what's great about this is it's like if you can see that it's got that almost like a very strong, almost going into a round shape here, but then it goes into triangular right there. So it's got like that little, it's almost like a little strong, almost like a dip area. So I'm going to continue here. Now, what I'll be doing is I'm going to really working with that, almost that freehand cutting technique. So I'm just going to lower this a little bit here. So now I'm going to go back over these bits here. Any little bits I don't like here. Now, especially if I feel that I want to create a little more just softening up, especially with black hair, can look a bit more too thick. So I want to kind of just soften these edges here. Now the key thing is I'm going through vertically with my blades, just to really soften those edges there. I'm not going crazy like that because I mean these scissors are very sharp, so I don't want to go too crazy and then I'll just end up cutting myself. So Let me go through again. There we go. Now, you'll see kind of like a different combination of bias cutting, which is you see, very tip of my blades, and I'm just moving along. So if you want to call it a traveling guide, you can. But you can see kind of that movement here. So I still have the back to cut. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to go back this way, making sure I'm using the wide end of my cutting comb. And through here, then I'm going to soften those edges now. So you can see it's got like these what I love about this is I just did a show, and especially in England, and what happened was the way I was describing the model's hair was that, you know, I want the model to kind of like wake up each day and see different areas that I cut to make it a bit more interesting for them. So each day the haircut looks a little bit different in a positive, good way. So. Now, would you be able to do this with a razor? Yeah, of course. You know, it's whatever. I mean, so Gerard, he does lovely razor cutting courses here on Hairbrained. And I'll be very honest with you, I literally just got my new razor, and so I can't wait to be able to do that, you know, working with more razor cutting, so especially the new feather plier razor. And so yeah, so I'm very excited. So now just remember, I didn't do the back yet, but you can kind of see, so I got these short bits here and then going into some length here. So now you can also as well work a little bit of slicing. Now, the difference is with slicing versus point cutting. Now, one of the big differences is that, especially with point cutting, yeah, it gives texture, removes weight. Slicing, yeah, it gives texture, removes weight, but also it will flatten down the shape as well. So basically, it will slightly alter the shape a little bit. So you can kind of start seeing how that going from shorter to longer, playing around with that crisscross areas. So you're gonna start seeing that bit more of an exaggerated texture there. So yeah, it's gonna be cool. Hopefully everyone's going okay there, Jen? Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Okay, so what I'm still gonna do here, so I'm just gonna put this, I'm gonna still do the same thing on the opposite side. Let me just grab a clip. I'm going to go through. And you see there's going to be that long disconnected panel here.
Can you turn the head?
Yeah, of course. Oh, I don't want to miss that bit. There we go. So this panel here, because you can see it's quite heavy when it fell. So I want to bring it up here. And I'm going to be raising it up a little bit higher. And yeah, you go in and out, a bit of notch cutting there. Just to lighten it up a little bit, so especially when it folds. Now when you're doing slice cutting, what I would recommend, make sure you don't go too deep with your blades. You need to see both blades, and I'm opening and closing. I'm not scraping like a razor. There we go. Now I'm going to continue. Now at this point here, I'm really working a lot of my my personal development here. Like what I mean is, it's like my personal feeling. So I'm not necessarily going through so technical. Everything now is just that really keeping it more that freedom of that what's, you know, like artistic freedom. That's what makes us as a hairdresser or barber. So it's going to start lightening up a little bit. So I'm going to continue. So you still have that heaviness right in those edges. So I'm going to continue.
Oscar says, I love it.
Oh yeah? Oh, thank you, Oscar. I really appreciate that. I think what it is, it's like you can see these short panels with long. Especially, I think, I believe his name was Reese. He asked me, would it be possible to do this on someone with finer hair? Now, you know, I tend to work with this type of technique, especially with men with either like medium or thick or curly hair. So that's the only thing. So I do apologize. So like, I mean, it's, I know when I first showed this technique crisscross to Jen, I mean, what happened was the next day, she's like, yeah, I did it on like 4 of my clients. I was like, oh, what? And yeah, so I think Jen worked with a different variety of different type of densities. So it's like you can have like a lot of fun with it. So now what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go back to the back of the hair. So now if you can see, I got this very long panel here. So at this point, what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually really going to be working, so almost like sometimes like the way, a bit of razor cutting sort of in a way, but I'm going to be doing with my scissors. So now what will happen is now, so now when I was doing that, one of the things to look out for is that, you know, if I had kept it very, very low, what would happen is, just like when we do, you know, your classic cutting techniques, one length, graduation, and layering, the higher you elevate or the lower you elevate it will determine how much weight you'll have in the haircut. So in this case here, what will happen is, if I keep this very low, it's going to be very heavy. So what I'm going to do, just raising it up as we speak, getting these little flyaways off here. Then afterwards, especially he's got that disconnection here, that short bit. There we go, yeah. So a bit more, like you can see, look at that, it's starting to stick up now. Now, that is like a really good indicator. What happens is, that's a really good indicator when there's enough weight being taken off. So a lot of times my students ask me, you know, oh, when do you stop? How do you know when to stop? You know, when you're doing the point cutting and the texturizing. Well, that's a really good question. A lot of times I'll move the hair around if it's longer. When I move it around, the areas that do not move, that means it's probably too much weight. So we want complete movement for longer length, but then for shorter hair, we want the hair to kind of stay up. And if it stays up, there's going to be enough weight taken off. If it slowly starts falling down, then I would recommend taking a little bit more weight off. So you can also, if you want to do a bit more freehand, just going back in. So what you could do is, it's almost like carving. You can actually have that bit more extra fun to it. So I definitely didn't want this to be kind of like a barbershop classic haircut. It's just something that you can actually just have, even if you just do this on a mannequin, you can actually just have a lot of fun. You know, carving out the shape, playing around, you know, you kind of first put more of a technical shape first, and then you're going in and really kind of fine tune it and really, like, you know, explore your creativity. And with then, you know, it's like then you can play around with different tools. You could be using scissors, razors, you know, whatever floats your boat. So Okay, so I'm going to move it around here so you can kind of like start seeing the way the shape is developing here. Yeah, you'll see I'm probably going to be doing a little bit more weight removing there. So I still have this panel to cut. So I really want to go back in. So the way I'm going to do it is have to kind of just stand over here for a moment. So going kind of just seeing how. And you know what? Even if you want to keep that bit, just keep it. The choice is yours. You know, just see if that works, you know, for your client or your guest inside your, you know, that you're working on. So open and close, open and close. Yeah, so hopefully this tutorial has been a bit more fun for you guys. I kind of want to make it very, a bit more fun instead of just like, you know, more classic type of looks. Once again, this type of look may not be for everyone. So once again, hopefully you're able to take certain things from this. You know, if you could take at least one thing from what we learned tonight, you know, well done. Just kind of going around. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is it's just like having that bit of fun. So I'm just going to just turn around a little bit. Around.
Oscar asks, he says he's tuned in late. Did you mention a zigzag part?
Oh, yeah, so wait 1 second now. Let me just break into this here. What we did was, we actually did something just for anyone joining us. So thank you very much, Oscar, for joining us, even though, you know, we got here a little bit late. So for anyone joining us that's a little bit late, what I did was, so just to give you a recap. So I had worked a disconnected panel, just a horseshoe, simple horseshoe panel. And the underneath, you'll have options of either doing clipper over comb, scissor over combing. You can keep it long, short, a fade, whatever you want to do. In this case, I just worked with vertical sections for the disconnection, going like this, and I brought everything up and I kept it square. Then I did that all underneath. Then I went back through the hairline and kind of just perfected it a little bit. And so, because the thing is, since I'm a bit like, I like to talk and I'm a bit slow cutter, I had to do some pre-cutting before we get started here with the live video. So, then the top, what I did was, the first section I cut, I had actually cut it, at an angle like so. So going from shorter to longer this way. Then my next section, I did from shorter to longer this way. The next section, I went this way. The next section this way, and so forth. As I got closer, as I got closer to the fringe area, I actually started to really do a very strong over direction back. Just because I really want to kind of give a bit more of like I call it like a 60s emo look, where very strong perimeter with more of like a loose, long, kind of like internal area. So, but thank you very much, Oscar. I really appreciate the you know, tuning in, and hopefully that helped answer your question then. So, cool. All right, so you can kind of see a little bit more of that. I don't know if you can see that texture that we had created. So, yeah, here we go, having a bit of fun. Playing around, yeah. Cool, now I'm just gonna perfect it now. So what I'm doing is probably, I got a few more minutes where I'm gonna be perfecting and kind of going over. So you can see that disconnection here, going over. Maybe I'm just not feeling that right there. So everything now is almost like a personal feeling, where what I'm doing is just a personal touch. So I kind of like that feeling here.
Oscar says, I like that idea, very cool. Thank you for the recap. I want to give this a shot tomorrow in the salon.
Yeah, why not? Have a bit of fun, Oscar, you know? I think the thing is, it's what I realized, especially through my career, was that, you know, it's the only one that's going to push you in life is yourself, yeah? And especially, you know, purely. So I always try to push myself to do a bit more fun things with hair and, you know, just having a bit more fun, you know, especially if I want to do creative stuff, that's up to me to do that. So, but yeah, so we have a bit of, you see that texture here coming through. Okay, I'm just not digging that right now, so I'm gonna cut that a bit more stronger. So normally, I would normally stand in front of my section here, but just so for the camera angle. There we go, so we got a bit of disconnection there, even in the perimeter. I'm just gonna step back for a sec. There we go. Okay, let's see what's happening on those side. Yeah, but thank you very much, Oscar, for the questions and everything. So, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free, you know, to ask. And I got this little bit right here. So because it's kind of sticking to the face here, so I'm going to just put this into my comb. Now, in case you were wondering why I'm just using the very point of my scissors for cutting, because if I keep on trying to do straight cutting like that, what will happen is, especially on dry hair, it's just going to keep on pushing the hair. So what I'm trying to do is by using the point of my scissors, I can then, if I want to create a bit of a stronger line, or if I want to create a softer line, I have that option too. So we get this little bit here. Get rid of that. So going over here. There we go. So just creating a bit more like a fun men's look. You know, so it's got that strong perimeter shape, even though it's textured. You know, I think working, like I said, you can use a razor. Recommend the feather razor. Great for hair cutting. And then, if you see it working with the scissors here, but you can really see that kind of like, almost, you can see the color poking out to make it a bit more interesting. And then, what happens is you have the strong perimeter and also the loose internal shape, but then also a longer fringe area here. So, and just say if you really want to connect the fringe into the perimeter, pulling this straight out, keeping it very low elevation. That's why, like, you know, originally Kelly had asked me, oh, how come I didn't show cutting on the back, was because I could sit here for hours on end doing all the texturizing and sculpting and stuff. So to me, it's one of my favorite things to do. So let me just get a little brush here just to brush off all the hair off the face. I tend to treat my mannequins like my clients. I'm a bit more, at least I didn't stab this one. So. All right, then moving along. So, and then the thing is, it's like as you're cutting hair, what I then recommend is that, like, especially, you know, I start thinking about what type of like product I want to use, especially for the finish. You know, for the styling, I used sea salt spray with a bit of frizz controller, just because I still want to get a bit more texture to the hair. Plus, I didn't want it to be too soft. So. There we go. So what's great about this is, just say if you want to tuck this behind the ear, you can. And then also want to showcase a little bit more hair here. Your client has many different options, or if they're definitely an emo, you know, very emotional and just want to hide their face, you can actually just have it all coming forward. So just trying to create a couple different options for your clients, especially when styling. And also then, you also give them a few product options as well. I think one of the things is, it's like, what I realize is that especially, you know, communication with your clients, you know, like how can we, you know, retain your clients, you know, by giving them a bit more personal haircuts, talking to them about product to use. Because the thing is, as barbers and hairdressers, we want to use product into your client's hair, right? Yeah, because we need it, right? We need to do those fabulous blow dries or the really edgy styling. But the thing is, we can't live without those products. So what makes you think your clients don't need them? Right? So your clients need the products just as much as you do as a barber or a hairdresser. So that's why it's great to communicate about product use to your clients. And also kind of what's great about this is by creating something a little more unique for your clients, you'll see that, you know, that's something, it's like another unique selling point that you can create something really beautiful, something a bit more, you know, texture, something a bit more unusual, where then they can't necessarily, one, recreate themselves at home, but at the same time, maybe another barber or hairdresser, your competition can't recreate. So if you see here, kind of like almost the motion of that crisscross cutting technique. So this is, like I said, this is a bit more on a longer length of hair. If you want a bit more flick, more carving. There we go. And then I'm just going to see this side, and then and then we're almost finishing up here. So I just want to take one last look in the back. I might just texturize the back one last time. But I think the key thing is when you are looking at your clients, try and look at them like a three-dimensional object. You know, so really kind of see, you know, from different angles, and also utilize your mirror. So the mirror is your best friend. So utilize the mirror and see where you can, you know, you can see any areas. How is that silhouette doing, you know? So yeah, so you can see it's quite exaggerated with the feeling of the graduation. Now, what happens is now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna slightly tilt my client's head up a little bit. Then I'm going to pull this up and through here. So working, I'm going a little bit deeper with my point cutting just to reduce a little bit more of the weight. So you can see some of those exaggerated bits coming out. I'm going to go back here. Once again, so keeping that. Going a little bit deep, almost like this, the length of my scissor blade. And so I just want to get a bit more of like a shattered existence there, shattered feeling. And go through this way. Same thing. So I'm going to come back. More time. And what I like to do is I kind of move when I do the point cutting, because then as soon as my left hand moves as I'm point cutting, I'm kind of changing up the variety of different lengths. So it's a little technique I like to do, especially if I want to create a bit more softness to the hair. So if you see, moving that through. All right, let me just blow all the hair off. Through here, maybe right there, and then now just to let you know, so the whole time I was doing with point cutting. So like I said, you can also do with your razor if you want to give that more of like a shaded existence, shaded feeling. You can also use your texturizing scissors. So depending on what you're trying to create with your clients, and also the hair density. And also just say, if you're starting off and you can't afford all the wonderful tools that we have for barbers and hairdressers, if you are just concentrating on your normal scissors, then you'll see that it's just like, you can create these shapes with just one single pair of tools. So, but yeah, cool. And then what I'm then going to do is just going to play around. I'm probably going to just style with a bit of like a spray wax. And the reason why I'm going with the spray wax is that I really kind of like want to create like a bit of dry, but also something that's going to be a bit more stronger, that's going to help control that hair. There we go. So depending if you want to put the hair up, it's kind of coming over. So just having a bit of fun with the hair, especially with the styling, especially, I think a lot of times when we, I have a lot of students that say, oh, I don't know how to style men's hair. But it's just like, well, just try, if it doesn't work out, just shampoo your clients, or shampoo your models, shampoo your mannequin heads. You don't know until you try. It's like, that's why when I asked about, taking photographs, a very famous photographer told me, just take photos. And then you'll see the more experience you have, the better it's going to get. So, all right then. So just to do a little bit of a recap, and then I will end. So what I did was I actually worked with the horseshoe panel of disconnection, and the underneath I worked with vertical sections, and then working with extraordinary flat layering. So I raised it up to 180, and I kept it a bit more flatter underneath and still retaining some length in the perimeter. Then after I completed all around that disconnected panel, I then dried. Then I used my point cutting technique and also slicing to really give more of a shattered feeling instead of like something that was too solid. Because otherwise sometimes if it's too solid, it might look a little bit more of a feminine shape. Then I worked, like I said, after texturizing, I then approached the top, working with sections going across the head like so. But when I was cutting, I first cut, it's called crisscross, cutting this way. So going from a short to long, the next one, short to long, the next section, short to long, and so forth. And when I got closer to the fringe area or the bang area, I over-directed the hair back, just to keep a little more length. Then after I blow dried it and maybe just touched it up with the irons, you don't necessarily need to with the irons. Then I actually worked with my point cutting and also slice cutting and a little bit of notch cutting as well. And you can also go around the perimeter with just the point of your scissors just to help refine the perimeter shape and also just to give it a bit more of like a softer feeling to it. So, could you have done this with a razor? Yes, of course. Could you have done it with a texturizing scissor? Yeah, of course. I just chose for tonight's lesson just to use a normal pair of scissors, and just so I can have a bit more fun and feeling like that artist and have that complete creativity. So everyone, Jennifer, is there any last minute questions or anything?
No question, just Oscar said thanks for the tips and awesome cutting.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you very much, and a big thank you to, of course, Jennifer, who was my camera person tonight. So thank you very much. I know you're dying for dinner right now.